Do you want to make no scrap cards but need just a little bit more surface to work with? Hi, I'm Jess from JessCrafts.com and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies and time. So let's get making. Today I am sharing how to cut a 6x6 paper to make a 6x6 card. I know there are a lot of different square cards out there that are popular. I decided to go with the 6x6 because there were like pre-made 6x6 cards, and also a 12x12 paper will make 6x6 cards without scraps. And since that's kind of part of the goal here is to minimize scraps and use up paper, I thought that this was well suited. Now I'm going to show you 6x6 paper. But you could use 12x12 paper because you could just cut your 12x12 paper down to 6x6 sheets. So one 6x6 paper makes one 6x6 card. One piece of 12x12 paper would make 4 6x6 cards. So you can use what you like. I have a kit from Violet Studio, and thank you to scrapbook.com for sending me this kit. It is their die cutting and embossing kit. So there's 2 embossing folders, 3 sets of dies, some gems, the 6x6 cards, some ribbon. And I'm going to just feature a few supplies in each of these paper busting cards because I actually have 3 6x6 paper busting templates for you. So let's start getting focused on how to make the card. I have the paper from the same Home for Christmas line from Violet Studio. It doesn't come with the kit, but it does coordinate. And I'm going to pull out 2 sheets of paper and make 2 cards just because I like to mix up my patterns, and these are single-sided patterns. So there's only that one side. You could totally do this design with one single-sided paper. I just find that things tend to stand out a bit more if you mix up the patterns. Now, I have a green and a red. I kind of pause on that just because then I'm always like, well, what's my matte color gonna be? Because oftentimes if I had a mostly green Christmas paper, I'd pick red for the matte because that's the other sort of Christmas color. But what I think is kind of cool about this particular Christmas line is I think it actually would go really well with craft paper. And so I could always just pick craft cardstock, or in this case, a dark green for my mattes as well. So you can go pick up this sketch at jesscrafts.com, and it's going to tell you exactly how to cut the paper, and then it will give you the size of the paper and the size of the mat here on the sketch. So I need to cut my 6x6 paper to, I'm going to start by cutting it to 4x6 because I want one 4x4 square. So now that 4x6 becomes 4x4. I'm actually cutting both pieces of paper at once. This paper is thin enough to do that. Most pattern paper is thin enough to do that, but if you're using a guillotine trimmer and have like 2 thick pieces of cardstock or really, really thick pieces of paper, then you might notice a little bit of shifting, but generally you can cut 2 at once. And then I took that 2x4 and I cut it to 2x2. I'm basically just cutting one big 4x4 square and a bunch of 2x2 squares. So I have this 2x6. All these measurements are in inches. Cutting it down to 2x2 and then another 2x2. I like to kind of cut off the edge rather than measuring the smallest piece. So I had a 6-inch piece, I went to 4 and then 2, rather than going to 2 every time. It's just a little bit faster, in my opinion. So with cardstock, I wouldn't cut 2 pieces at once. I often find it's a little too thick, so it's not worth it. My mats are going to be a 1/4 inch bigger. So 4x4 inch square needs a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch mat. I have 2 of those. Perfectly out of that. And then I need a bunch of 2 1/4 inch squares. So 2 1/4, I can like double it to 4 1/2, triple it to 6 3/4. And that is generally what I'm going to do. So that, again, this piece is not big enough. This will be a scrap. We can talk about some ideas for that. But the no scrap template means no scraps of patterned paper, not no scraps of cardstock. I have not figured out how to do that. That's intense. Okay, and this we're going to bring it to 4 1/2 and 2 1/4 and keep going until we have 5 of these for each card. One piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock got me everything but one square. I do hold on to scraps. So like I have a little bucket of like all my craft cardstock scraps, and I was able to cut the last square I needed from that. But all of these scraps can be used for things like when you need to prop up a panel on the card, which I'll probably talk about later on in the video, or die cut a sentiment or something. I have these scraps to go to. I find it a lot easier to use cardstock scraps than pattern paper scraps, and easier to organize. And frankly, easier to let go. Like if this gets too full, I'll just throw a few of the small pieces in the compost and be fine. But I have a harder time doing that with pattern paper because I see so much more potential in pattern paper, where cardstock is just kind of feels a little more endless. So I'm trying to be really good with my scraps, but I prefer cardstock scraps. I will mount all of my pattern paper pieces onto the craft cardstock, and then I'm going to assemble everything according to the sketch. I tend to try to save time in these instances where I'm working with lots of little bits of pattern paper and put tape on everything all at once and then start assembling it. And I'll do the same thing if I was making multiple cards. I actually, like I said, I'm making 2, but I'll save the other one to make as an Instagram reel, because I know there's some people who prefer a shorter demonstration of how to use these sketches. So you can check me out over on Instagram at jess.crafts. Also want to take a quick second to say thank you to all of my patrons. So over on Patreon, a couple people are pledging money each month, and it helps me to keep my templates free. So you can go to jesscrafts.com and print all of these templates. There's over 100 templates at this point, and they're all there and available. Just because I want everyone to feel like they can craft no matter their budget, and so I'm making those resources there. But I do really appreciate those people who have committed to helping over on Patreon. Okay, so here's that, or I was talking about that cardstock scrap. I'm adding all of these pieces here to the corners as according to the sketch. And then, oh, you know what? I had one that had like a little bit of something, some kind of imperfection on it. So I'm going to hide that imperfection right now. And then when I go to put my centerpiece, it would be just fine to glue it right down and not put this in the middle, but this just kind of gives it a little bit of extra support through the middle. So then I'll add my adhesive around that. And if you thought you had like a way of using this leftover scrap, you could keep this the way it is. You could stop working here and use this large surface, but there is still this extra, and there would be for each card. I actually have a sketch that deals with 2x2 squares for an A2 size card, and you make like a little arrangement with them. So if you really prefer this design, for every 3 of them, you'll get one of these, or you'll have enough scraps to make that other design, and I'll try to link it in the video description. But I'm going to just pop this in the center as sort of like a even more focused in focal point, and then we'll do some embellishing. So one of the dies that you get in the kit is this car die, and it has the 2 wheels. I misplaced one of the wheels at the moment, and 3 presents, and then you can kind of rearrange things as you see fit. But the die for the car and the presents is all one piece. So if you want them out of separate colors of cardstock, you'll have to cut them out separately, which is what I chose to do today. So I picked some red cardstock. These are all scraps from the scrapbook.com Christmas cardstock pack. I find that it actually coordinates really well with this collection. And so then I can add the new presents on top as a little bit of interest and dimension. You could also add some inking because, and I'll try to see if the camera will focus. As you can see, while it is all one die piece, there is embossing in the dies. So there is a lot of detail there, but not like you don't have to assemble lots of little pieces to achieve that detail. So if that's more your kind of thing. And I also cut the windows out of the same gray from the scrapbook.com Christmas smooth cardstock so that I could fit those back in. So I need to decide, do I want to just kind of keep everything super, super centered and place it here, but I also think you could do it off to the side here, and then that would, either way, the car is facing to the right, which I think is really smart because it's directing your attention inside of the card. So your eyes are going to go the direction that this is driving, and therefore it's going to, you know, point yourself inside of the card. I'm starting to think that, oh no, okay, I did glue the card right this time. So whichever way you like it. I decided to put it down here in the bottom right, and so it kind of calls to me to then put a sentiment over here to balance it out. So again, I just went into my scraps, and this is why I am not afraid of cardstock scraps, because I think of reasons to use them all the time. It would be a lot harder for me to find a pattern paper scrap that I could stamp a sentiment on, but if I'm looking for adding a sentiment, cardstock scraps are, sometimes I can just, you know, like I did here, I just stamped it directly on, maybe cut that little corner shape for a bit of interest, you cut a banner shape, or you can die cut it with a banner die. The card kit, or the die cutting kit, also came with some gems, and I don't normally use a lot of gems, but I thought I might today just because I do actually send more Christmas cards, so I'll know that I can send them to somebody who doesn't mind gems. I donate a lot of my cards, and there are organizations that ask you not to put small items like this on your cards. I will leave you a link in the video description to my page on my blog that shows you, I'm not, as you can see, I don't use gems because I don't have, maybe I do have one of those special tools. I just don't know that I have it. But the page on my blog that shows you, I do have one, where you can donate. So like I just like list a bunch of organizations, but then from there, you're gonna need to go in and kind of see which one suits your card making style, the kind of person you want to send a card to, what are their rules, etc. I don't know, I thought this was supposed to, maybe this is for sequins. Maybe you guys can tell me in the videos. I bought it for this end, and because it was pretty. But I thought you were supposed to be able to like pick up small things, but maybe it's just sequins. And there's also these gold ones. I thought I'll put those on the wheels. If you found this video helpful, here's another video where you can get more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template or tutorial, and check the video description for product links. See you in the next video.